everyone. We are leaving some moments to welcome the people entering, and and we are going to start. Thank you very much in the meantime for joining us today. This webinar is co-organized between three different European projects and funded under the same LIFE program. My name is Francesca Tamburini, and I am your project officer at the European Heat Pump Association. And today I'm really glad to be your host. Then we are actually together with Martin Stroleni, Joanna Fernandez, and also Tomislav Novozel, which are part of two other projects involved together with Ready for Heat, which are ConnectHeat and InPlan. And we decided to join forces and present what the three projects are actually doing to pursue the decarbonization of the heating and cooling sector, and what are the different methodologies and tools that they are developing. But before starting, to quickly also introduce them and deep dive into the topic of today's, I'm very curious to know where are you joining from. So now I'm going to share a poll that is going to appear in your screen, where you can actually, just write down the city where you are from or the country you are connected from. And I would do the same. In the meantime, I see people from Belgium, just Croatia, nice. Continue, please, to share. Lisbon, very beautiful. I hope the weather is better in Lisbon than here. And you can still write down where you are connected from. And in the meantime, I'm going to share the agenda of today. So we are now in the introduction part, and after that, we are going to introduce actually three different presentations from three different consortium. So the first presentation will be by Tomislav Novozel from InPlan Consortium, and he's going to provide an overview from planning to action and integrated energy, climate, and special plans. Then we will have Martin Stroleni with an overview on ConnectHeat and community engagement for clean heat. And then we are going to finish with Joanna Fernandez on the Ready for Heat roadmap to decarbonize the heating and cooling sector via the national energy and climate plans. After that, we will have some panel discussion, and we will go through toward the closing of the event. Just some internal rules. So we are using a Teams webinar platform, and unfortunately, we are not able to switch on the camera or the microphone of the audience, but you will be able to write in the chat. So for any question you would like to ask to the speakers, please simply add it in the chat, referring to the person that you want to ask the question, and we are going to take care of it during the panel discussion. Let's meet the project of today. To give you a very short introduction before starting with the first speaker, I just want to spend a couple of words on the project. So the first project is the one where I'm working on, which is Ready for Heat, with the aim of supporting the implementation of the Renewable Energy Directive provisions on heating and cooling, and to assist member states and the local authorities in that process. How we are doing that by providing a better understanding of the current challenges and in the strategies, and propose also how to address them with a set of recommendations. This action will be complemented as well with some capacity building events in 5 different member states and at international level, which are actually starting in the next weeks. So we are very happy of that. And we are going also to finalize the development of a knowledge sharing center and a toolbox to support public authorities at national, regional, and local level. Then we have InPlan project, whose aim is to empower as well local and regional authorities in developing and implementing integrated energy, climate, and spatial planning in the territories. The project is developing, testing, and rolling out the in-plant practice, which is a long-lasting support structure, enabling the local and regional authorities to effectively implement their sustainable energy, climate, and special plan. And the last project, finally, we are going to meet also ConnectHeat project, which is working to accelerate the decarbonization of heating and cooling through a new wide implementation of citizen-led and energy community initiative. It's going to create an enabling policy framework and a strategic ones, and improve and build the capacities of public authorities to trigger innovative community energy initiative to through local participative and cooperative processes, which lead to increase share of renewable and higher energy efficiency of heating and cooling across Europe, and also through the development of real pilot cases in 7 different European countries, which are the targeted areas of the project. But yeah, I think that I've already spent too much words on that. So I'm happy to introduce the first speaker of today. So we have here Tomislav Novozel, which is working at the Northwest Croatia Regional Energy and Climate Energy since 2019. First, he started as project manager, and then he's an expert advisor. His area of expertise are energy and climate planning at local, regional, and national levels, as well as the development, implementation, and coordination of European funded projects. In 2023, he obtained his PhD in the field of energy planning, specifically on the topic of integration of heating, cooling, and power sector at the University of Zagreb and the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering. So thank you very much for being here, Tomislav. If you want to take control of the presentation, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Do you see the slides moving normally? Excellent. Yeah. So as mentioned by Francesca, I will give you a quick overview of the in-plant project, and more specifically some of the things that we are doing in order to try and empower local and regional authorities to actually implement the various plans that they have been developing. Sorry, it's my first time using this live presentation method. So while working with local and regional authorities, we've identified several challenges that they have when it comes to the actual implementation of the measures that they would like to do. The first and most critical one is basically a lack of capacity, or more specifically, a mechanism to actually enforce and enact binding energy and climate policy at their respective levels. Meaning that they have capacity to plan actions, but implementing them beyond the buildings or land area that they control directly can be quite a big issue. Another element is that there is a lack of vertical and horizontal integration, or at least alignment of various strategies, plans, and policies, meaning that at different governance levels, so local, regional, national, they are being developed very often within their silos, not considering what is happening above or below them. And also when we are talking about different sectoral strategies like buildings, green infrastructure, development planning, and so on, they're also usually not fully aligned and not taking each other into consideration. So this all basically leads to a lack of systemic, integrated, and consistent approach to planning, and especially energy and climate planning, which, even though they should be heavily linked, are again very often done in their own silos. And finally, even when things are done correctly, there is usually a lack of consistency between what is being planned and what is being budgeted for, so that there is usually a lack of resources for the actual implementation of the measures that are planned. So basically, very briefly, there is a disparity between planning and implementation. When we talk about plans at local and regional level, the most common ones that you will probably think of are sustainable energy and climate action plans, or similars like the European Energy Awards, or a variety of different development plans. They're all quite good. They have their purpose. If done correctly, they can be excellent tools because they usually give you your current position. So basically your baseline. They provide a vision, so the final goal, and a variety of actions to actually reach those goals and to move from the now into the then. But again, the problem is that these documents are often either voluntary or they're unfortunately basically a wish list because they lack any punch behind them. So they basically don't have a mechanism to actually be enforced, but are still just a vision document. Another type of document that cities and regions have are spatial plans, which again similarly are planning documents, basically planning the development of the territory within a geographical scope. But they're also enforcement tools. Basically, any building that requires a building permit or a use permit needs to be aligned with its respective spatial plan, be it a regional one, a city one, an urban one, or a special spatial plan. So in any case, these planning documents also have an enforcement arm behind them. And these spatial plans already do consider energy and climate in a way, but unfortunately, they usually only focus on the placement of energy infrastructure or green zones, again, without considering the wider picture. And this is when you can get to a situation such as the one presented on this picture. So this is a spatial plan of a Croatian city. In red, you can see the representation of the city's district heating infrastructure, and in green, you can see the gas infrastructure. There's two issues here. The first one is a very subjective, the representation of district heating as red, which is usually a color that represents something bad or something dangerous, and natural gas being represented in green, which is usually a positive, clean, and good color. Is in itself somewhat problematic, but the bigger issue that we can see here is that there is an absolute overlay between district heating and natural gas. So basically, this means that whenever you have a district heating line, you have a gas line passing right next to it, meaning that both networks are basically competing with each other, are reducing the efficiencies of one another, and there is no real point in having them appearing in parallel. So there's also a resource inefficiency that is happening immediately. And because spatial plans usually do not take a broader context when they are being developed, this is a picture that is too often seen around Europe, and I know it's definitely the case in all, if or at least almost all Croatian cities that have district heating. What we have basically started suggesting to cities is to use spatial plans, since they are both a planning and an enforcement mechanism, to start enforcing their energy and climate visions, basically by identifying measures that could have a spatial component, translating them from a purely planning or a purely energy or purely climate point of view into something more spatial and into the language of urbanists. These measures can be transformed into measures that can also be integrated into spatial plans. And once there, they basically become binding instructions for all types of new developments and reconstructions, meaning that a city or a region can then slowly start taking control of their actual energy and climate development. In practice, this process, of course, has several steps, and it isn't as simple as that last image might present, but it's also not overly complex. So basically, the whole thing can be boiled down into 6 steps, where first off, you need to identify the relevant plans, strategies, and the specific measures that you would like to promote through your spatial plan. You need to see for which of these measures you need maybe some further proof, some further technical assessments, technical documentations to actually underline them and actually present them as something viable or mandatory, and then prepare these the measures selected for integrations. As the spatial plan is being developed, the measures can be integrated directly into it. Once created, of course, the spatial plan needs to go through the proper public consultations, and then finally it should be adopted just as any other plan. And throughout this whole process, continuous communication and cooperation, both with the city and with the developers of the spatial plan, should be happening. And of course, the local community needs to be involved in this process, since this type of planning can be seen as somewhat intrusive, as unlike sustainable energy and climate action plans, European energy awards, and similar planning processes, these ones are mandatory and will have a direct impact on the people living in the area. So all of the proper procedures which are in place when spatial plans are being developed need to be taken into account here. I've also mentioned some analysis that need to happen. So specifically, when we were doing this process, we also implemented spatial heat demand assessments for the existing built environment, as well as for some potential future developments. So here you can see a spatial representation of the existing buildings within a city that we analyzed, and in blue you can see locations of future developments that will happen in the near future, and basically using this information and some other data like specific, like the ages of the building, specific heat demands, and so on and so forth. We were able to create current and future potential space heating demands, as well as through that prioritization zones for decarbonization. Once these areas have been identified, the city has basically been split into zones depending on the, let's say, trajectory of its decarbonization, and then specific measures can be allocated to each of those zones in order to actually facilitate the process that we would like to see happen across the city. There's quite a lot of different interventions and different measures that can be adapted to this process. A lot of them will, of course, focus on building energy efficiency and sustainability of the heating supply, but it can go beyond that. District heating plays a very big role here. So I see that somebody says that they're not seeing the slides. I don't know if this is a general issue or if it's just for this one person.
I can see it, Tomislav.
You can see it, okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, then my apologies, but maybe leaving and re-entering could solve the problem.
Exactly, and yeah, in any case, the slide will be shared after the webinar. But yeah, maybe the suggestion is to re-enter in the meeting. Thank you for flagging it.
Yeah, I hope it gets fixed. In any case, just to get back to the topic, so as I've said, that there's a lot of different measures and areas of intervention that could be addressed by this. Again, district heating being one of the key topics that we in Croatia have focused on in this process. But this can also go further. For instance, in certain zones of the city or for the whole city, the spatial plan could also request a higher rate of energy efficiency for new builds. This can be especially valuable in cases where the national building regulations is lax. For instance, in Croatia, the requirements in energy efficiency, according to the NZEB directive, is relatively weak. So the overall efficiency, so the building requires a B level of energy efficiency, which is decent. However, it only requires 30% of renewables in its energy mix, which is usually achieved by a simple mix of a condensing gas boiler and an air-to-air heat pump used for air conditioning, which is usually declared as a additional or an auxiliary heating source, which can provide 30% of heat, basically meaning that a building that is heated 100% by natural gas is on paper declared as having 30% renewables. So a higher standard placed in a spatial plan can mitigate that issue, for instance. Other examples are, of course, district heating zones or renewable heating zones, basically declaring certain areas within the city as off limits for fossil fuels, or at least direct use of fossil fuels. This can also include additional requirements for the sustainable supply of electricity, for instance, mandating the use of building integrated photovoltaics for some types of buildings, all buildings, certain zones, so on and so forth. Beyond climate change mitigation, certain climate change adaptation measures can also be integrated in this way. For instance, increasing the requirements for the use of green infrastructure and biodiversity in urban areas to prevent urban heat islands and the loss of biodiversity in, again, urban areas. And it can also implement measures for water management, so basically flood prevention, landslide prevention measures, and so on. And the last two elements are a bit more tricky to integrate. So mobility is fairly difficult to integrate into spatial plans. The spatial plans are basically static documents. So it's usually addressing mobility at rest, meaning infrastructure like parking spaces, EV charging, similar elements. And finally, waste is also something that could be addressed through this process, but waste is unfortunately very often a highly political topic. So within this project, we did steer away from that. This process isn't always easy and straightforward. There are several barriers to this. So the primary one is that the responsibilities and budget splits across various departments and levels of governments can be difficult to navigate. The bigger the city, the bigger the bureaucracy, the bigger this problem usually becomes. Then there's also issues with different levels and sectors within the local, national governments can have different priorities, especially if different political options are in place. So all of that can muddy the water. It is also very often difficult to coordinate between different government levels, and so on and so forth. So there are a variety of challenges for this. But to end on a positive, we already have quite a few successful examples of integrated planning across Europe. The first one isn't a direct result of the project, but is actually our primary motivation or inspiration for writing in plan, and that is Vienna in Austria, which has this integrated spatial and energy planning layer. So since Vienna is both a city and a state, they have the capacity to pass certain laws. And one of the requirements that they did was basically to add an additional spatial planning layer, which is their spatial energy layer, which basically defines the energy development within the city, meaning both the expansion of district heating, rollback of natural gas, and some mandates for the energy use for heating in certain parts of the city. So this was basically the primary inspiration for what we are doing. Since most other cities across Europe don't have this capacity, meaning that they aren't states and cannot pass their own laws, which are passed at either regional or mostly national levels. In the other cases, we've basically focused on existing instruments that cities have at their disposals, spatial plans. So in Croatia, we have 3 cities that have advanced this process quite substantially. So the city of Karlovac, which I've already presented with their overlaid district heating and natural gas grids, is actually now becoming quite a positive example for integrated spatial planning. So The first pilot that we've done basically in Croatia is a suburban spatial plan for the area called Luščić, which is a brownfield, an old military base that is now being repurposed as a mixed-use part of the city with some business, social, and urban and housing facilities, which has a very strict energy efficiency requirement, basically requirement that all heating is supplied sustainably, either through district heating or through 100% renewable sources. There's a lot of requirements on the use of green infrastructure and so on and so forth. And basically, this pilot has been fully implemented. It has passed through all of the necessary legal processes and is now being physically developed, this area in the city. The city has also taken up a lot of the conclusions from this suburban spatial plan into their general urbanistic plan. So basically the plan covering the whole urban area, which now also limits the use of fossil fuels, specifically natural gas, for heating in most of its densely populated areas. The city of Križevci also has a suburban spatial plan called Kosov Breg, which also has very strict requirements on the sustainable supply of heating. And finally, the city of Zagreb, again, also piloted a suburban spatial plan called Badel, which again basically eliminates the use of natural gas and other fossil fuels for space heating, requires a higher share of renewables in general, and a higher rate of energy efficiency and green infrastructure. And again, the findings from this suburban spatial plan are now being translated into the general urbanistic plan, which is still being developed, and we are still pushing the city to be as ambitious as possible. So we will see exactly how far this will go. So positive examples are happening. In some countries, this is more difficult, in some less, because of the overall national legislative framework, which limits how ambitious spatial plans can be in some cases. But across most of Europe, this is a process that can greatly help in the decarbonization of at least the new build stock, and also in the case of refurbishment. So basically, whenever a permit is required. This is it from my side. I hope I didn't extend my presentation too long. You can find more information on our website, and if you need any further insight, you can reach me at the email address on this slide.
Thank you very much, Tomislav. Indeed, if you have questions, you can already put them in the chat. And yeah, thank you for presenting the work that Implan is doing, and also to finish with this good example of what the cities are actually doing. And regarding that, I also wanted to involve the audience, the public, by launching another poll, which is actually, you are going to see it now on your screen. Regarding the challenges that your municipalities, cities or region, and local and regional authorities are facing in decarbonizing heating and cooling. So here we have included some of the options that we think are usually more popular. So if you want to answer and providing your feedback as well, we are very happy to collect them, and maybe also come back about it during the panel discussion. So yeah, I will keep it open, and yeah, you are free to insert answers. I already see some of them appearing. The majority for the moment is yeah, policy and regulation, but I see also people voting for financial constraints. So yeah. But for sure, it's connected to the fact that the legislative framework sometimes is restricting, as you already say, Tomislav. So, yeah, thank you very much. You can continue answering. And I saw that Martin has already taken control of the presentation. So please, Martin, I will quickly maybe just introduce you. And so Martin is also a partner of Ready for Heat, but today is representing actually another project, ConnectHeat. and is an innovation manager at Heat and Power, the European Association for District Heating and Cooling, managing a growing portfolio of EU-funded projects, as well as supporting the knowledge transfer activities and the member engagement. He has been involved in different European projects, focusing specifically, but not exclusively, on the energy sector, and leading or contributing to horizontal activities, including dissemination, communication, replication, and policy uptake and project management. So thank you, Martin. If you want to take back the control of the presentation, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesca, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. So as Francesca stated very well, today I will represent ConnectHeat, even though I'm also involved, or I was involved in 24Heat as well, so it's a project I know very well too. So what is ConnectHeat about? So first of all, ConnectHeat is basically a project which works on thermal communities. So we are promoting and, let's say, paving the way for thermal communities in Europe, which is still kind of a niche topic. And I think we are the only project which basically works exclusively on this topic, which is exciting, but it also brings some challenges. So what's the main objective? So the main objective is basically to ensure that there is an enabling policy and strategic framework for energy communities and specifically heating and cooling communities in Europe, which currently is not totally the case. So what we are trying to do is to improve this and, let's say, raise awareness about the topic and its potential in Europe. So when we wrote the proposal and when the project got funded, the starting framework was that there was still not a complete, let's say, implementation of the RED II in different countries, and also heating and cooling wasn't that much considered there, as the previous legislation focused still quite a lot of electricity. Now this has been changing, but we feel that still there are not enough space for heating and cooling, especially in the energy community or in the energy community legislation, which is specifically mentioned in the RED directive. So so far, with this context, the community energy has been almost exclusive reserve of electricity. So this concept, or let's say this approach, was mostly used in the electricity sector, but we haven't seen, unfortunately, so many projects or initiatives in heating and cooling. So this is something that we want to change. So heat. So our main target in the project are public authorities, because we believe that, or we believe it's certain that public authorities have the power to make a change, and heating and cooling is a local solution per se, which depends on local sources. So as such, we involve directly public authorities in the project, but we also target public authorities with our different activities, because they act as decision makers, but also target setters. They can, let's say, give the incentive in the area for new initiatives, for new projects. They can act as urban planners, regulators, and they even own buildings. So what we are trying to do is to empower them to take their leadership and to basically start thinking as well about the thermal community aspect, because they can really boost the commitment and involvement of local communities if they have the capacity to do so. Francesca already presented the project in the beginning, so I can just say we have 10 partners, and as I said, we involve also local authorities, and we have some, let's say, European partners as European Power and FEDERAN, and the whole project is coordinated by Ambiente Italia, which is a consultancy group based in Italy. So I will not stay on that for too long. So what do we mean by thermal communities? Because it can be a bit vague. So basically, what we understand as thermal energy communities can present itself in different forms. So first of all, we can have, let's say, cooperatives with different types of ownerships, but we also can talk about different financial participation of citizens, for example, as crowdfunding. where people can directly participate financially in specific projects and in exchange get, for example, an interest rate. Then we can also talk about heat prosumers, where consumers can become prosumer and, for example, sell some excess energy to the grid. But also there can be some other forms of consumer involvement. What do we need to realize this potential? Well, we need a lot of things. So first of all, we need legislation regulations, of course, which are still lacking in many cases and which are quite heterogeneous in different countries. But we also need, let's say, well done heating and cooling local planning, which now is also an obligation under the new Energy Efficiency Directive. But it seems quite challenging because many municipalities don't know how to do it. So that's also one of the main elements which we will need to, let's say, foster and really use this potential. Then, of course, funding is important, as well as awareness raising and capacity building, because in many cases, municipalities don't have the capacity to basically, how would I say, promote these projects. So capacity is important as well. Then, of course, we need technology, but that seems a little bit less challenging because we have technology, we know it's there, and we know it can be used. The question is how it can be applied effectively. So some keywords, of course, when we talk about communities or energy communities, the main word is local. So these projects are locally based, so they are focusing on local communities, on local energy sources, and they create partnerships with local entities, responding to common needs. But they also respond, let's say, to a shared vision and to a collective engagement. And within these initiatives, the participants or the members share responsibilities, but also costs and benefits. So it's a kind of a democratic structure where everybody's involved in the same way. And what is also important is that the consumers, or let's say the members, can influence the project by, for example, choosing technologies, but also agreeing on where else the community project should or could go. Should we extend the network somewhere, or should we invest in a new technology? So basically, when you talk about community project, the participation is important as well, and the people can actually shape the project. So that's important, corresponding, of course, to their needs, expectations, and values. So in ConnectHeat, we have seven pilots in 7 different countries. So it's quite a big number, because we are talking about 7 different policy, regulatory, environmental, and social structures. So in each country, we have different challenges. And also, all of the pilot sites start kind of from scratch. So they are shaping, or they're, let's say, precising or developing the project from scratch in ConnectHeat. So this brings a few challenges, and some are more advanced than others. We will produce different tools and different reports as part of the project, which can then also be used by others. So first of all, with the different pilot sites, we work on the development of energy policy roadmaps, which can be then endorsed by local governments. So basically, we identify what is the situation in the countries, what are the regulations, what are the policies, and how they could change or how they could be adapted to foster such projects. As I said previously, the policy is still quite lacking, so we are also working on the position paper. So we will kind of extrapolate all the results and, let's say, the different barriers encountered in the different pilot sites, and we will consolidate all this in a position paper, which we will then distribute at the European level, and which we will also present at different occasions to let's say, foster policy uptake of the approach. And then we have been running a lot of different training sessions. So as I said, capacity is important, and many public servants, but not only, still do not know much about community projects or about thermal communities. So what we've been doing as well is that we've been organizing a big number of different capacity building sessions, trying to build capacity of key stakeholders. And we will also develop a kind of a blueprint. So it will be, let's say, a guide for anyone who would like to dive deep into thermal communities and maybe who would like to develop a community project. So this will be, let's say, one of the key documents and results that we will develop. It will be at the end of the project, so somewhere at the end of next year. And it will be, of course, publicly available to anyone who wants to learn more about this topic, but also maybe who would like to start developing their own project. We also have just started looking for some replicators. So we will try to engage 7 replicators in Europe that we would like to train and support in setting up their own community. So, for example, if there are any municipalities or utilities or energy companies interested in this, you can check our website, and there is actually a call for applicators that we just published, and you can apply. There's quite a simple questionnaire, and then in the next months we will evaluate the applications, and then we will decide about the 7 replicators based on the results of the questionnaire. And we will also develop a heating and cooling community energy map of best practices. So basically, as I said, it's still quite a niche topic. There are not so many best practices. So we've been trying to look around a little bit and identify some use cases, some success stories where actually thermal communities have been created and implemented. And we will consolidate all of this in a, let's say, in a very simple map on our website. It will be a clickable map, so we will see the different cases as pins in the different countries. And then once you click on the pin, you can see some basic information about the case, such as funding, the energy output, technologies used, as well as the stakeholders involved. We are now just developing this map, and we are in the process of gathering the examples as well. And then, of course, it's important to communicate and disseminate, and we are the communication partner of the project. So we have foreseen a bunch of different activities, such as EU-level capacity building webinars. So we will organize these in September, October. They will revolve around different topics, such as financial technologies, regulatory, but also focusing more general on the community aspect as such. And we will organize them in September, October this year. So we will soon start promoting this, and anyone interested is welcome to take part. We will also organize some EU workshops probably next year, as well as some further, let's say, capacity building workshops in countries which are not involved in the consortium, so such as Central Europe or the Balkan countries, for example. And this will probably happen as well next year. And then we have also foreseen 7 national workshops, so in the 7 countries involved in the project. And this will happen, I would say, let's say, in the last 2 months of the project. And one of the let's say objectives will also be to communicate the results to local stakeholders, and this also will be open. As I said, we have the call for applicators going on now. So again, if there are any interested people here, just check our website, and you can find the call there, and you can send us your application, and we will evaluate it and let you know as soon as possible. We also have some resources which are already available, which can be used, which can be looked at. So, for example, we organized a train the trainer session. There were, I believe, 5 different episodes. We covered different topics linked to community projects, such as types of financing, regulations, technologies, but also stakeholder engagement, for example. And all of these have been made available on the website, including the recording and the presentation. So you can look at it as well. We also kind of made an in-depth analysis on the different contests in the target areas, what is the starting point, and this is also available. And then we also investigated what is the community energy potential in the pilot site areas. And there we identified different barriers and how this could be overcome. So this also is available on the website. Now I just included a few examples of some thermal community projects which we could come across, which we could find and gather. They are not from the project, but I think they can serve as inspiration, maybe see what can be done. So first of all, for example, we found this project in Germany, in a small, let's say, city of 2,000 inhabitants, where basically they created a cooperative of over 200 members, and they installed solar thermal panels, but also they kind of let's say used excess heat from a local furniture store, and they installed a cogeneration plant as well as a biomass plant in the village. So this helped them to ensure their own heat production, and all of the members was involved with one vote, of course. And I think the project cost 3 or 4 million. They paid 1 million from their pocket, and the rest was provided by the government, but also by investment banks. So that was quite an interesting project. And the idea is to extend the cooperative to more houses, so that the city is fully decarbonized. Then, for example, we also come across this example in Netherlands, which is quite famous. So it's the Thermobello project. It's in Culemborg in the Netherlands. It's basically an eco district which already started doing its activities in the early 2000. And here, people are not only involved in the thermal community, but they also kind of participate very actively in other topics such as public spaces, water management, or food production. So it's kind of a social innovation project there. And concerning the thermal side, they basically installed a heat pump, taking water from a local drinking water basin, increasing its temperature, and then sending it to over 200 houses. So also quite a nice project, which was very well received and is often used as a good example as well. Then we also came across about another project in Germany with more than 180 households involved. Again, it's a cooperative. The city basically managed to have an independent energy supply because, as you know, Germany is still very much dependent on fossil fuels and on the import of gas. So they decided to become independent. I believe the project is still ongoing. It's not fully implemented yet. But what they did is that they installed solar collectors, which basically then feed into a pit thermal storage, which is then connected to a heat pump in case there is a need to increase the temperature, for example, in winter, but also into a buffer storage. And the heat pump itself is, I believe, is powered by a CHP unit. And in case of need, there is also a biomass boiler in case there is a need for more energy. So also quite an interesting project, which I believe was also supported by the local government, and they even involved the university, which did kind of an analysis if this is the most financially interesting project, because they said that they could also, for example, renovate all the houses and improve their energy efficiency instead of installing this network. But the analysis concluded that it would have been much longer and much more financially extensive. So this project basically seemed to be the best way to go. And I put some more examples in the presentation, so it will be shared with the speakers, I believe. So then, of course, everyone can have a look at them. Then we also came across some crowdfunding examples. For example, in Italy, there was this this crowdfunding campaign run by Edison, the local company, where during 3 days they invited people to participate financially in the development of a local district heating network, and they managed to gather 100,000 euros within these 72 hours, and people could participate with between 100 to 4,000 euros, and in return they would get an interest rate. And then, of course, we have some projects of heat prosumers. So, for example, we saw this project in Austria where Solid, which is let's say a solar heat provider, made an agreement with building owners to install solar collectors on their roof, and they made an agreement with the local energy company, Energigrad, to sell the energy to them. And we also found one project in Sweden where basically an association of flat owners and local utility installed solar thermal panels as well. And when they were not using the energy, it was sold back to the grids, and they were using net metering applications there. So also quite a nice example. Yeah. So going to the last slides. So we were also investigating what are the key barriers basically to, let's say, to set up thermal communities, and we were asking different stakeholders in different countries to rate from 1 to 5, high barrier and 1 not so important. And as you can see, for example, one of the, let's say, the biggest barriers seem to be regulations, but also the policy framework, as well as business models and financing, but also information and know-how, for example. So all of these 8 barriers are relatively high, except for public acceptance, which has been the lowest. So it seems like these projects are quite well accepted by the public. And now just what can be done to further support heating communities. So we believe that there is a lack of support from authorities, both at national and European level. So we need more and better streamlined measures and regulations, but also effective planning. Then, of course, it's important to provide more financial support, and such as, for example, funding, which can foster these projects, because most of the funds available do not focus on citizen-oriented projects. So usually these funds are used or benefited from energy companies, but they do not focus so much on the involvement of citizens. There could also be some other measures, such as providing incentives, for example, to electric communities, which include heat, or, for example, on the renewable use in heat networks. And we can also further promote the direct financial participation, such as crowdfunding or cooperatives. And of course, there's always a need for new innovative business models and public-private partnerships. And last but not the least, capacity and knowledge is important, because we really could find that the knowledge is lacking in most of the areas. So it's really important also to increase the capacity and raise awareness of the topics, and promote good practices and show how it can be done, and maybe also kind of increase cooperation between different municipalities and member states, especially with those who did it well. And just to finalize, so you can see our website in this slide. So please don't hesitate to have a look at it. There is already quite some material, and we will keep uploading more and more results. So please feel free to have a look at it. And we also have a LinkedIn page. So if you want to follow our story, please make sure to follow us as well. And our coordinator is also managing a group on LinkedIn on renewable energy communities. So if it's a topic that passionates you, don't hesitate to also take part in this initiative. And that would be all from my side. Thank you, Francesca.
Thanks to you, Martin. Thank you a lot for sharing all the information and explaining us better what these energy communities are and everything that you are doing. Also to share all the examples and yeah, best practices that you are collecting. It's good to see what is happening actually really on the field. And yeah, I just wanted to drop another question to the public. Regarding this topic. So I'm going to launch another poll regarding what also Martin was talking about. So what do you believe is the biggest benefit of joining an energy community? So yeah, there are some options. So yeah, let us know what do you think about. I see some answers coming up. So they reduce energy costs, increase energy independence. Someone also struggled the environmental benefits. So yeah, that's good to see, and we are very interested to see what do you think actually. And so please continue answering it. But yeah, I think the majority is yeah, more for the increased energy independence. So that's good. I see that Joanna has already switched on the camera. So I'm happy just to take back one moment the control to quickly introduce you. I'm happy to introduce one of my colleague in Ready for Heat project. So Joanna Fernandez is energy expert with 20 years of experience in the international and European cooperation projects in the field of energy efficiency in buildings and renewable technologies, focusing also on energy empowerment and user behavior change. She cooperates with ADENE since 2012, acting as project manager for several European projects, mainly in the area of energy efficiency, highlighting the coordination also of the HARP project and the partner role in label PEC A+, Front and Ready for It. Presently is the coordinator of the technical project unit, responsible for accompanying the management of ADENE's EU projects in ADENE's technical areas. Again, energy efficiency, renewable consumers and energy poverty, water efficiency, circular economy and mobility. So a real expert that I'm happy to give the floor to. So yeah, Joanna, if you want to take back the control, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. I believe I've taken the control. Can you see the first slide?
Yes, perfectly.
Well, it's actually quite a challenge to come in third place for this excellent panel, following Tomislav and Martin. I hope I can keep you interested in this topic. So basically, what we are talking here today, it's about the Ready for Heat project. It's actually promoting the webinar and in a way to kind of, I would not say close the loop, because we can't close the loop about renewable heating and cooling. It's a work in progress, but also now talking about from a policy perspective and how the Ready for Heat project is looking into policies to decarbonize the heating and cooling sector. And our main focus are the national energy and climate plans. So basically, I'll just go very briefly through the NECP's context, the National Energy and Climate Plans, present you the Ready for Heat framework and goals, and then the Ready for Heat process, hoping to also engage you with the idea. So what are the National Energy and Climate Plans? They've been out since 2019. They are part of the regulation on the governance of the Energy Union and climate action, agreed as part of the Clean Energy for All European packages. And basically, it's the outline of how you member states intend to meet the EU energy and climate targets for 2030. And it's basically addressing 5 main dimensions: energy efficiency, renewables, greenhouse gas emissions reductions, interconnections, and research and innovation. So the first edition of these plans was published in 2019. All member states submitted their first plan, their first 10-year plan, 2020-2030, by the end of 2019. every 2 years, each member state has to submit a progress report. So evaluate what has been done in the field, identify which are the shortcomings, what can be improved, always in this improvement concept. And now we are at the stage where member states submitted a draft on an updated NSEP last year, last June 2023. And basically up to 1 year afterwards, so roughly around now, June, member states should present a new version, the updated version of the NSEPs. Potentially some delays are expected until the end of 2024, but this year still we will have an updated version of the NSEPs. And of course, this is a great opportunity because we are, let's say, at the edge of very significant changes from what was our global context in 2019, and there are several challenges, of course, ahead of us. So it's the right moment to look again at the NSEPs and try to introduce even more demanding and more challenging targets, measures, ambitions to meet their decarbonization path. So this is basically the framework for the Ready for Heat, the inspiration for the Ready for Heat project. So how can we look specifically into the NSEP's section about heating and cooling, and how can we improve that? How can we make it more ambitious, and how can we increase the rates to this path towards decarbonization? So we launched the Ready for Heat project. It started in October 2022. It will last roughly 3 years. And we have several energy agencies acting as partners, several trade associations. And the main concept here is to gather our brains around the evaluation of the NSEPs and how we can learn from each other from the very beginning. So learn from the experience, and basically all the national energy agencies involved in the project are also a player at the national level for the definition of this NSEP. So they have an active voice in this. And of course, the trade associations bring an extra added value, presenting the technologies, presenting what are the forefront ideas, and helping us to be more innovative in this approach. So we have 5 focus countries, so towards which we focus our attention on the NSEPs, and we'll develop action plans and promote new ideas for accelerating this decarbonization of the heating and cooling sector. We are talking about Greece, which is also where our coordinator comes from, which is CRES, the national the energy agency from CRES, it's Center for Renewable Energy Sources. We have Portugal, Poland, Croatia, and Germany. So these are the focus countries. Of course, this is all done very much in a replication perspective, and we already have some replicators aligned to follow our work. But these are the focus countries for this first step. So what is the basic framework? When we were preparing the Ready for Heat project, the Renewable Energy Directive was still under revision, but there was already a lot of information on what we could expect to come from this. So the main the new red is out already since last year, and we know that the targets are quite ambitious, and the main headline is to double the share of renewable energy sources within our energy consumption, and specifically it addresses specific sectors, has specific measures for the different sectors, specifically also looking into heating and cooling, transport, industry, buildings, and district heating and cooling. And if we look into the heating cooling sector, we have 2 very relevant targets, a binding one, which is the main framework for our project, which is to increase the share of renewables in heating and cooling by 8% per year from 2021 to 2025, and from 2025 to 2030, from 2026 to 2030, increase this share by 1.1%. So this is a cumulative and a binding target, so it's very challenging for most member states. So how do we accomplish this? How do we make it work, and what are the main drivers for this is the goal of the Ready for Heat project. There is also an indicative target to increase the share of energy from renewable energy sources and waste heat in district heating and cooling by 2.2% per year, which is also, of course, very ambitious and one of the key topics we are looking into. These are the main objectives. So support the implementation of this new RED directive, specifically looking into the provisions for heating and cooling, and assist the member states. So definitely these 5 that we have as focus countries, the 3 lined up for exploitation, but all of the member states to comply with this regulation. So working directly with local authorities, and we are using the NSCPs as the main playing field to where to introduce the new policies that can support this path. So how do we do it? What is the Ready for Heat process? First and foremost, establish dialogue. Of course, as I said, all the energy agencies that are seated at Ready for Heat have a voice in the definition of the NSCPs at the national level, which is already a great start. But then there are the national authorities, there are also regional authorities, we have market players, we have all the community of organizations and consumers that need to be also at the same table within the discussions. We just heard from Martin's presentation that communities and heat communities are also becoming a more and more reality. So definitely different players coming into the field that need to be part of this discussion. Evaluate the national framework. That was our the starting point. Define adoption scenarios, new measures on how to do this, and then of course assist the public authorities on the field to this implementation. Looking into the dialogue, what we have done, we have gathered national stakeholders groups, as we call it, basically joining the consortium members, so the ones that are 100% focused on this, and calling the relevant public authorities, namely the ones responsible for the final definition of the NSCPs, market actors relevant in the heating and cooling sector, and several other organizations from the consumers, from NGOs. The invitation was extensive. I think so far we have been very successful in the 5 countries, being able to involve more than 50 organizations in these discussions, and the basic ground is to have 3 meetings to discuss every step of the process, but surely more are to come because the feedback is very good. We know that how hard it is to look at the NSCP, and it's massive, so addressing all areas, and it's a very, very helpful support when we have actually the insights of a team that is only looking at the heating and cooling sector. Of course, it has links to other sectors, but the ideas that can come up from the project, that can come up from this consortium, are very beneficial and are very much very sharp, let's say, and super useful for the NSCPs. So the evaluation of the national framework. So basically, there was a brief outline of all the member states NSCPs, so not only the 5 focus ones, but all member states, a rough overview of what is being proposed, what is being done, then a thorough analysis of our NSCPs, looking both at the 2019 version and the updated version that was submitted, the draft submitted in 2023. And already there we were able to do a comparative analysis between the 5 focus countries, and already understand a bit where are the shortcomings, what is someone else doing, what are the highlights, the strong points, what we can learn already from each other. But the main conclusion here is that basically all the NSCPs lack ambition and targets, and of course adequate national policies and financing to ensure the decarbonization of the heating and cooling sector. So this analysis allowed us to, in a first line, identify the shortcomings, and already there some best practices, what is being successful at the national, regional, and local level. With this analysis of the best practices, we were able also to identify the key success factors. So what needs to be in place? What is the must-haves for a successful decarbonization strategy for the heating and cooling sector? And building on these key success factors, we identify policy priorities. So policy priority areas that the countries, the member states should look upon and identify, okay, this is what's missing in my NSCP. These are the focus policy priorities I need to look into and work towards this. We also, in parallel, map existing resources and tools. So we have looked to several tools, from mapping tools, from potential, from technologies, training materials. So a lot of resources are already available. It's sometimes it's a question of having the time to look into it, to know that they exist, and actually understand how we can reuse what is already available and make them fit for my purpose, for my reality. And we have been able to congregate several resources and tools that can help to implement these new measures. So the strategic policy priority areas that were identified were 6. Definitely the policy package per sector, it's one of the key policy areas. We need to have more ambitious policies and clear guidelines on what needs to be done in the different sectors. If we look at district heating, the residential, non-residential, and industry sectors, then collaboration, multi-governance level at the different steps, at the different layers of involvement, from what comes from the EU, and what is the level of implementation, and what are the actors at the national, regional, and local level. Definitely engage all actors. It's not only about public authorities, it's about also the private market. It's also about consumers, it's also about NGOs. So we need to engage all different kinds of actors, and also think about engaging local and decentralized authorities, as we've seen that more and more we have decentralized solutions, we have prosumers. So there's a portfolio of new solutions that now has come into place and need to be considered for this. Create awareness and build capacity. Definitely there may be will, but there's a lack of capacity and know-how to be able to develop this and to promote these measures and effectively implemented in the field. And then, of course, vulnerable consumers. They are, of course, on the main motto, leave no one behind. And how we make this transition possible for everyone is also one of the policy priority areas. So at the moment, our member states are developing their adoption scenario. So the first step is to identify which are their strategic policy priorities from the 6 we just presented. Identify which are the ones that we need to focus on. Upon this identification of the policy priorities, define the measures to tackle these policy priorities. And for this, we have the inspiration on what is being done in the other member states and what are the best practices, what are the key success factors, and this toolbox, this heat transition toolbox that aligns several resources and tools that are already available. And then we need to define how to operationalize each of these measures, identify the relevant stakeholders, identify the necessary resources and competences, and of course, estimate the impact that we expect for the different measures. So this is the step where we actually are now. and what should we take into consideration, and what and how is this exercise being done? So we have the analysis from the NSCPs, identifying the shortcomings and the best practices. Basically, now we want to address mainly the shortcomings, what is missing in our NSCPs to comply with this new with these new targets and with decarbonization ambitions. We have the heat transition toolbox, an inspirational pool of resources that we can pick and play and adapt to our own realities. And then we have the provisions of the very recent directives, READY 3, so the Renewable Energy Directive, which already has, as I presented, binding targets for the share of renewables in the heating and cooling sector, the new energy efficiency directive that brings the topic into district heating and cooling, efficient district heating and cooling, and the local heating and cooling plans that need to be made by municipalities. And of course, the new APBD, the most recent one, that already encompasses here some very specific topics for heating and cooling, the need to assess the heating and cooling system's lifetime and capacity to operate more efficiently, and also the big promotion of solar energy in buildings. Martin already showed some very good examples on how solar thermal is the main source for providing heat, and definitely this is the way to move forward in this compliance. So some of the measures that are being studied by the different member states in their action plan. So one of the main issues when looking into buildings is what is actually the solar potential. Definitely, it's imperative to have a clear evaluation of the roof solar potential to assess the right balance between solar thermal and solar PV, prioritize where we have good potential. This can also help us map future heating communities, and definitely this should be something that is made by public authorities, that is made public, that is available for consumers to use and to know how to move forward if they want to install solar panels in their roofs. Then, of course, assessing the energy performance of existing heating systems. This is one of the provisions that are already in DPBD, and how we can do this. Well, the energy label for heating system has been enforced in 2013. It's now under revision, and we know how challenging that is. But definitely how to communicate in a user-friendly way to consumers what is the efficiency, what is the performance, what the energy performance of your existing heating system is quite a challenge. There has been an exercise to prepare a methodology to label the energy, to label existing heating systems, so both space and water heating, and definitely the rollout of this label would be an extra added value to communicate in a very user-friendly way to consumers whether is or not time to change their heating system, and not and leading them to plan ahead for this replacement and not saving it for the last time. So of course, this also allows us to prioritize the replacement of inefficient heating appliances and reinforce incentives and subsidies based on performance. Of course, we should tackle the most energy inefficient systems first. And of course, again, here, this classification, this label can be a good support for that. Fiscal incentives on renewables, covering the full stage of installation, not only the equipment, but the installation and the maintenance as well. Definitely one of the missing parts in the chain is the maintenance. Financing programs to facilitate the investment in renewable heating and cooling solutions. Financing is at the core of all of our questions, of course, and a clear mandate also to share energy data. This has also been one of the key topics in the discussions in Ready for Heat. How do we access data? How do we make it available? How do we make it usable? How can we think about it in the support for the planning ahead? And of course, skills. We have heard Tomislav, Martin, both in Plan and ConnectHeat, talking about training, actions, and capacity building. This is definitely at the core of all the EU projects since we are facing a massive transition and we need to provide the right skills for our market. So this is also the following step in Ready for Heat. We are assisting public authorities acquiring and embedding all these learnings in their plans, in their NSCPs, in their daily work, both at national, regional, and local level. So we are going to have workshops at European level. We are going to have also study tours to understand on the field how the things are done, capacity building sessions, and of course, bilateral sessions to engage the public authorities with these measures and actively support them, not only listing these measures in the NSCPs, but then on how to operationalize this on a practical basis. The last slide is the status. The Ready Heat, the Heat Transition Toolbox has been launched and it's public. We have the web page, the project web page available in AHPA's website. So please check it out. There's already a lot of information and there are a lot of tools that can be inspirational for the challenge that you're facing as well. We are now developing our action plans and definitely will come up very soon with the final versions of this and share it. And we'll have the capacity building workshops at EU level, national level. So stay tuned. Subscribe to Ready for Heat newsletter, subscribe our LinkedIn and follow us because there will be relevant news from our side very briefly. So thank you from my side.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Exactly. And thank you also for the promotion of Ready for It Online. That's very, very good. No, but it's very interesting to see how we are actually now tackling the strategic policy priority areas and what is doing actually the project and all the tools and the measure as well that we are really trying to gather to provide them to the public authorities and to the public to really try to support the decarbonization of the sector. And regarding also what we are doing, I also want to involve for the last time our public, just launching a last question before going quickly into our maybe shorter panel discussion. So if you know any what initiative has your local government implemented to promote renewable heating and cooling. So here you see some of the most popular options that we have gathered. So we wanted just to see, if you have an idea of what is happening at local level. So what is more popular now? I see already some answers and some percentages. So it's quite the majority for the moment has voted providing grants for renewable energy projects, which is very good because we have seen in all of the 3 projects presented that actually are big barriers is the financial limitations. So that's really, really positive to see that there are some initiative actually supporting financially the promotion of renewable heating and cooling. So if you want to continue to share. In the meantime, I taking control of the presentation and I check quickly the chat to see if there are some comments or some feedback. To the public, if you feel to have question or to want to ask something to the speakers, please go on. Otherwise, maybe I would go for a round of 1 question each, just maybe to go deeper in what you have already presented. Maybe we can start again from Tomislav. And I just wanted to quickly ask you regarding the spatial plans, how do you think that the urbanists and the planners actually are reacting to the proposed integrated planning approach that you have mentioned it in your presentation? If you want to give an answer to that, a reply, we are happy to listen to you. Thanks.
Yes, so I'll focus primarily on the experiences we've had in Croatia. So spatial planners have been a bit frustrated with the spatial planning policies that are happening in Croatia. A lot of their let's say, power, and a lot of the capacities they have been taken away, and the process has been greatly simplified. So they have also not really been happy with the way that the legislation has been turning out. So when in contrast we provided a mechanism which would give them more capacity and more authority to actually start planning stuff in a more coherent and integrated manner, they were very happy. And basically all of the feedback, all of the interactions we've had with spatial planners have been positive. The only pushback has been in the way of them not being sure if what we are suggesting would be acceptable by the cities, and if there could be some potential legal ramifications in meaning that, for instance, investors could try and sue their way around what we are proposing. But in general, the feedback has in Croatia been quite positive. And from what I've heard from other partners in other countries, the experiences have been very similar. In some cases, the urbanists don't immediately understand what we are suggesting because they're usually architects that have studied and are working in urban planning. And then we come with suggestions from, let's say, energy, with an energy and climate focus where we don't understand urbanism all that well. So there's a bit of a language barrier almost, even though we're speaking the same language. So once again, this initial barrier is overcome, again, the responses have, as far as I've been told, mostly positive. So I think that the urbanists and urban planners do appreciate what we are doing as well, because it does focus again the work on them, on their expertise, and basically allows them to go beyond just making changes in spatial plans based on the request of investors into actually making something transformative and actually doing something that really matters.
Okay, thank you. That's great to hear actually, because I guess it's very important to have also these kind of figures on board and agree with the plans. So good to hear. Thank you very much for the clarification. Yeah, maybe we can go on with Martin. If you are here, and so as all these three projects are actually involved in policy and are connected to policy framework and to support member states and local authorities, as we have seen. Do you have any specific policy recommendation to give to the public before leaving the webinar? If you have something that you really would like to highlight.
Yes. So as I said previously, energy communities are still almost solely exploited in the electricity market. So we don't see so many heating communities as such, and it's also because the regulations are not that supportive. In many cases, there are long permitting processes and quite a big complexity. What we think would be, for example, interesting would be to include the dimension of heating in the EU regulation, which is dealing with energy communities, especially in the red directive. This could help to give an incentive or a stimuli to maybe include more heating in these communities. But also we believe that it's important to, let's say, set up some funding schemes as well that could support these projects and really put citizens in the heart of energy transitions. Because as I said, most of the funding, for example, available at national scale are not proposing anything for such projects. So it would also be interesting maybe to come up with some more funding support, be it subsidy or loans or some guarantees, for example. That for me would be a good start. But then, of course, we've been talking a lot about capacity, and I think capacity is very much important, be it capacity of people, but also capacity of municipalities, because people usually need to be supported, and usually they will be supported by municipalities. As such, we need really some public servants which are competent enough to support these people. And for example, that could create I don't know, some one-stop shops or some specific platforms within their ecosystem that could support people in or citizens in their development of community projects. So yeah, there's quite a lot to ask.
Yeah, okay, but thank you. Yeah, it's good to have already some key takeaways. So yeah, thanks. And I would just finish. We're running off time, but I'm happy. Yeah, I would like also to ask quickly a last question to Joanna. Still concerning the policy, the involvement of policymakers and also the market sector, which is quite important within the Ready for Heat approach. How is going this involvement process? Do you have something to add? Do you want to add something more about it?
Well, from our experience, we have the feedback from the partners and we have our experience here in Portugal. What I can say here in Portugal is that okay, kind of strange to have a specific task aiming at heating and cooling, because they are used to working with the whole NSEP. But in the end, but what progressed with the time, I think they were quite happy to be taking the burden out of their shoulders, meaning that we have done such a detailed work, we have done such a let's say a transversal work, learning from other NSEPs, learning from other initiatives, understanding what's there, what's positive in the market, understanding what needs to be there exactly what. And I think the main question is trying to support them in what needs to be the priority, what do you need to tackle first, because resources are scarce, there's not enough money, there's not enough competences, and if we can have a kind of a roadmap on what you need to do and how you need to build your strategy, that's a huge gain from their perspective. So actually the involvement from the actors that are well, especially from the national authority that are responsible for the NSEP, is very, very positive. This is the right timing because they are now in the revision process. So definitely we couldn't have asked for a better timing even if we anticipated better. But it's actually very positive, and the feedback now is great. We are identifying the measures, and now we really need a capacity building on how to implement this on the field. So I think it's a huge effort, but definitely it pays off, and it's being very well received by the local authorities.
Thank you very much. That's good to hear as well. And yeah, with these positive takeaways, I think we can go toward the end of the webinar. I see also the clock, and thanks for being here. So yeah, if you are interested in following the project, I'm going to share the presentation. You will find all the links also to follow them on the website, on the social media channels that they have. And yeah, as EHPA, we're going to continue organizing webinars and workshops, so also on different topics. So if you are interested in, of course, feel free to follow us again on LinkedIn, social media, and Twitter, and to check out the events of the association. And again, thank you very much to the speaker, Tomislav, Martin, Joanna, to Julia, my colleague, to support me, and thank you very much also for the audience to be here. We are happy to share all the materials very, very soon, and I'm happy to close this webinar, and wishing you a good rest of the day. Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Francesca.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.